Victory Podcast, and I'm your host, Monique Watson. On this episode, I sat down with Kaitlin Guerin, who is a pastry chef, and we talked a bit about how she got into that world, coming from the world of professional dance, and a bit about what it's like being a woman, especially an African American woman in that. Thanks for listening, and I hope you enjoy. Welcome to the Victory Podcast. I'm your host, Monique Watson, and I have the lovely privilege to sit down with a friend that I've had for a long, long time, most of her life. My friend Kaitlin Guerin. Kaitlin, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to hold back myself from calling you Kaitlin because that's just
I was gonna say.
it's like even saying your actual real name is like, but even saying your actual real name is like, but that's just Kaitlin. Like
My ears were ready to hear Kaitlin. So the
I
fact
had
that
to control. I was like, let me at least get out your actual name before we slip into all the nicknames. Yeah, thank you so much for being on this podcast episode.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Thank you. Thanks.
Awesome.
Yay.
We're doing excited dances, which goes over well
Yeah.
on audio podcast. Yeah.
Right.
So maybe for the folks who aren't like your mom and my mom listening to this, maybe you can tell a few of them a bit about yourself and maybe a little bit about how we know each other.
Yeah, I think we should start off about how we know each other, because that stems further than maybe about myself necessarily, because I've known you for, like you said, like 20 plus years ago, when your family moved into the neighborhood that my family lived in.
Oh my God. That is no, I'm thinking about it. It's like almost exactly 20 years ago because
I think yeah,
it
I
was
think
right before school started, I think, or maybe Thanksgiving, but of
it
like
was around.
2000.
Hmm.
Oh
Yeah,
my.
and I remember the first real memory I have is of me and Nicole on the Halloween hayride in our neighborhood. So Monique has a little sister, Nicole, who was who was also living her best life right now and doing amazing things. And Nicole and I befriended each other, but our both of our parents, our moms, are really good friends, and that's how we got to know each other. And Nicole was a couple year is a couple years older, and Nicole was a couple year is a couple years older than me. And at the time, of course, I was young, and that was super cool to have an older friend, especially in my neighborhood. So I was always at your guys' house during the summertime in your pool, hanging
For
out.
sure.
Many, many years spent with your family and vice versa, years with our family. And we have that beautiful, close connection of our family relationship that has been over 20 years. Um, and now, and then, so I was living, and your husband moved about 4 years
Four
ago.
years ago now.
4 years
Yeah.
ago, yeah. Yeah. And then we finally met up like 2 years ago.
I know. Life. If anyone's familiar with the Bay Area, to be fair, like where she was living and where I was living, Oakland versus San Jose are not close to each other. So it's not like it's a hop, skip, and jump. Plus traffic is its
That's
own
true.
bear. So,
I mean,
but
I
yeah.
had no excuse. I was with my boyfriend, and his family lives in San Jose, so we would always go over there. But we finally met up, and then yeah, here we are now, and back in different cities. But to introduce myself, my name is Kaitlin. I am a pastry chef and still a contemporary dancer. Um, I'm currently based in New Orleans, and I've started a home bakery where I sell assorted pastry boxes to local friends and family and anyone in the New Orleans community. And I think we're going to talk mostly about my culinary career here, but to say that I'm so young, I've lived many but to say that I'm so young, I've lived many lives and many career ventures. So before I started with culinary, with pastry, I had a professional dance career. I moved to the Bay Area. Let's see, let me back up. Let me back up. I I went to undergrad in upstate New York and then moved directly to San Francisco about 6 years ago, and lived in San Francisco and Oakland for the past 6 years. And I'm back home now. And I'm back home now. I decided to move back home at the beginning of the year to spend time with family. Little did anyone know that COVID would have happened, but I'm so thankful to still be here in New Orleans and to be with my family. But I cultivated back in the Bay Area my dance career. I'm a professional active, but I found a different route, a different way to express myself and to be artistic, and that is through food, specifically through desserts. And I've worked a few hospitality jobs, but then I decided, like a lot of people, that I'd rather work for myself, especially post COVID. Working out really well for me, so I'm enjoying it.
That's awesome. Yeah, so as you've alluded to, we will talk a bit just to lay out for folks where we're going on this journey with Kaitlin today. So we'll talk a bit about how she got into and she started to kind of tap into it, how she got into the culinary world, what's it like, channels that the culinary food world is can be a very male dominated industry. I don't know if there's any difference between pastry chefs versus more savory type of chefs, if that still holds as equally true, but just kind of understanding her journey there around being a female, especially an African American female in those spaces. And then also more about her small business, what's it been like. Pretty early on, I think, in your small business stages, so getting that feel and what maybe some of your original expectations were versus some of the realities, and then some tips for those looking to get into business for themselves, whether it's food or any other kind of small business venture. And then we'll, of course, make sure she shares all her great social media info so you can stay in tune to all the great content she's putting out. So yeah, so we go professional dancing. I remember Kaitlin's been dancing for as long as I've ever known her, 20
Yeah.
plus years as we date ourselves with that. So what made the move from professional dancing, and to be clear, like you said, you are still dancing, but more of your primary focus, I think, has shifted a bit more towards the culinary. And what kind of prompted that?
Yeah, really, a lot of the influence was where I was living at the time, and I think just cultural shifts in how people view food and the artistic value, right, in the culinary world. When I moved to San Francisco, I was still dancing, but I've always loved eating sweets, and I've always loved science. So just a little bit of a background. I love science. I love, science and creativity for me go hand in hand. But so I've always been an artist in that way and needed an outlet to express my creativity. So I've been dancing for quite a few years, as you said, for really most of those, and being a lot more intrigued in that realm, baking a lot more with friends and family. And then I realized one day that, like, wow, I can still express myself and do the same thing, but through food, and which to me at the time held a lot more value because it's something that you eat around. And it's like, for us growing up in New Orleans, it's food is such a celebratory cultural experience. And I think all of that kind of rained back on me. And I was like, wow, I I enjoy this so much in so many different aspects. Let me try it out for a little bit and see how it, let me try it out for a little bit and see how it goes. So I started baking a lot, and my boyfriend Lino, that he loves to cook, so he cooks and I bake. And I got really into baking, really just because it's a lot more science oriented, a lot more exact. It's a lot more science oriented, a lot more exact measurements, right? You can't just go whip up something out of your fridge and call it a cake. That's just nearly impossible.
You could
If you realize
try,
all,
but people do, air
yeah,
quotes.
people do air quotes, air quotes. Emphasis on the air quotes, air quotes. Emphasis on the air quotes. Yeah, you can try, but unless you know proportions and ratios and like what you're factoring in place, it's probably not going to turn out so well. So I got really intrigued with the whole baking realm. And at the time, it was more for fascination than it was for career interest. I'd gotten a job as a pastry assistant in a contemporary Italian restaurant in Oakland right before I started culinary school. This was like a test to see if I really like what I was doing. I'd been doing a lot of home working from your home. And I was like, oh, cool. Started working there and I fell in love with it immediately. She taught me so many amazing things and tips, and I decided from there that I wanted to venture into this new realm of creativity. So that's where I decided to go to culinary school because I wanted to hone all of my technique and just be able to be in a space where I could learn everything at once and from, some of the best chefs in the world. So I decided to enroll into the Culinary Institute of America at Gracetown and to the Culinary Institute of America at Gracetown, which is in Sonoma County, Napa. So I started culinary school in January of 2018, and it was quite a ride. I think it was quite a ride. I think at this point now, I think I've already answered your question, but I'm just gonna keep going if you
No,
want
it's
me to.
good. No, yeah, I like long form. Don't feel the
Okay.
need to edit yourself too much.
Also, I think I forgot the original question, which was how did you get into baking? So I think I forgot the original question, which was how did you get into baking?
Yeah, how you got into the
Yeah.
culinary world. So I think we're still on that journey. That's good.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so we can back up a little bit too. I'd had this job with this contemporary Italian restaurant, and I'm working with a pastry assistant. And at this time, I knew, okay, I want to bake. This is what I want to do. It's precise. It's exact. The outcome is always going to be the same unless you mess something up, and then you get to work backwards from there, which is what's up, and then you get to work backwards from there, which is what's great. And you know this too about science is that if you have a final result that is an error, like your cake came out and it fell, you're like, oh, what did I do wrong? Like, what happened? Like, let me reverse engineer this and figure out where I went wrong in all of this. And all of that stuff was so learning and continue creating just in a different realm. Yeah.
Awesome. So, what are your tips if someone is thinking like, oh, I really love food, whether it's baking or the savory style stuff or what have you, and they're thinking about getting into knowing people or kind of what are your thoughts there if they're thinking about it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think that answer has shifted now since we're in this like present slash post COVID era, right? Because my
Mm-hmm.
initial answer is like, go work in a restaurant, go stage. Answer is like, go work in a restaurant, go stage at a restaurant that you think you'd want to work at. When stage is basically like you get to intern or, shadow with a restaurant for a number of hours or days. And you go there and you see if this is really what you want, hours or days. And you go there and you see if this is really what you want to do, because you'll find out quickly enough whether or not you want to be in the hospitality industry. And I'd worked in hospitality before, so that was not new to me, but I'd always worked front of house. So I knew how rigorous the kitchen was and how demanding it was.
Mm-hmm.
But for and how demanding it was.
Mm-hmm.
But for someone who's really fascinated with food and really interested in cooking or baking or both or what have you, I really would say, just try to get your hands in there and like really in there, like go try to work a Saturday night, really in there, like go try to work a Saturday night service at a
Mm,
busy restaurant, and then decide if that's really what you want to do. Because as much as I love baking and I love working in restaurants, I've even learned over the couple of years that I'm not fit to work service. Developed, working for myself and building my own company, that I love restaurants. I love eating out. I love working at restaurants, but it's not really for me. But if you're starting on your own and you're interested and fascinated by it, do your research, find some names, find more information. Just a very demanding skill. It's a very demanding industry that requires you to always be attentive, always be on guard and respectful, and just always have it together. You are providing a service for a restaurant that is do with at all, because that's your name on the line. If you mess up something or if something goes wrong, someone gets sick, God forbid, that's on you at the end of the day. It's very stressful, but for a lot of people, like myself included, that's kind of the thrill of it too. So if that's what you really are excited about doing, and those kind of what you really are excited about doing, and those kind of ideas like get you excited and get your heart pumping, then I'd say yeah, depending on where you are at your stages in life, if you have had restaurant experience or not, either start working in a restaurant. You're starting from prep cook, and you're starting from prep cook and you work your way up, or you someone like me and just jump right into culinary school. Because for me at the time, I wanted to be able to learn all the techniques at once in a very specific way where it was way where it wasn't there was no pressure of, hey, this is for service tonight, so like don't mess it up, but also like let me teach you how to make a cake. So it just, any the right you choose is specific, for you. And but yeah, for you. And but yeah, I mean, really, you have to have the passion for it. And every place that I've worked at, and I think that's the beauty of the industry, is that I'd say like at least 90% of the people in there were super passionate about it. I really loved hospitality. We're in it to win it. That like no matter how stressed they were, no matter what was going on the other side of that door in their own lives, they were there. They were committed. It was ride or die, 110%. You do everything. You get it out. You want to make people happy. You want to make people enjoy the food that you're cooking, and to be able to get that, that sense of relief, that like a good path, then I think, people should definitely start to go for it.
that's definitely good advice, I think, for folks to get a feel for it, really, and seeing what they're in for before they get too deep in the weeds and realize they don't really like it, which is true for many different fields, I think. True for many different fields, I think.
Yeah, and that happens too. I mean, and I'll say it for myself too. It's kind of happened to me that certain restaurant jobs I think I'm fit for, but the ones that I really want to be in are really demanding, and they're fine dining and high quality. And as much as I love fine dining, it's in high quality. And as much as I love fine dining, it's a little too fast paced, and not what I'm quite ready for right now. So I've learned that about myself, and there's nothing wrong in admitting that at all.
Yep.
I
Yep.
love to enjoy it. I just don't want to work it. Yeah,
For sure.
want to work it. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, so another aspect to kind of explore, I think, in the world of food and culinary is that it tends to be a very male dominated arena. And what has that been like as a woman, as a woman, and especially, I don't know if there's any, how much differences that exist, but like in other areas, I would guess there is, being an African American woman um, in those spaces. How was that? I know you're now more on your own doing your small business stuff, but when you were working in the kind of dining and various actual commercial kitchens and things like that, what was that like? And what are some challenges you ran into and maybe overcame in those arenas?
Yeah. I think this question could be an entire episode in itself. Talked with a good friend of mine on the same topic. Her name is Candace, and she is also a chef. And we worked together in San Francisco before I came back home. She's also a Black female chef, young as well, and she started her own podcast. So here's my plug. It's called Hungry Humble Podcast, and she talks. It's called Hungry Humble Podcast, and she talks with other female restaurant enthusiasts and chefs, any hospitality workers, females, about being in a male dominated space. So I was on her podcast, and honestly, I think we had like a 3 hour conversation, and wasn't even enough to like scratch the surface of this
Hmm.
topic. So I'll do my best to
Yeah, I've actually
water
listened
it
to her
down.
episodes. I think I saw you mention it
Oh
on your
yeah.
social media, and so I checked out a couple. I actually sent her a note, so hopefully she comes back. Really awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. She's really got something going, you know. And I was really happy to hear that she wanted to do that. I thought it's a great idea. And this is a great question because it's so prevalent right now, especially
Hmm.
in the past couple of years with what's been happening in the Bay Area. I'm sure you've noticed with a lot of male chefs I'm sure you've noticed with a lot of male chefs getting called out for sexual harassment and
Hmm.
everything. And my first job, actually, that happened at the time that I was there, that the chef got called out for sexual harassment at
Wow.
the work. Yeah, and it was uh it was uh it was confusing and like very it was rough to have to go through all of that and have meetings, and I left for different reasons, but man, it's being a woman, and like you're saying, especially a young black woman, a young black woman. And I'll say that because Candace made it very clear to me when I started my last job in San Francisco. She and I were the only two black women working in that restaurant, and we were some of the youngest, I think. But she looked at me the first night we met each other, and she was like, "Yo, like we're unicorns," and I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "Yeah, whatever." I'm like, I'm like, "Yeah, ha 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 ha." She's like, "No, I'm serious. Like we're unicorns." I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "We're young, we're black, and we're female. When are you ever gonna find that in any restaurant where and there's two of us here?" And I was like, "Oh my God,
Mind blown.
blown,"
Yeah.
literally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, it is very rare, especially on the West Coast, maybe more so down here in the South, being back in New Orleans, but how do I feel working in a male dominated space? I guess it's the same as if you'd work in any other male dominated space. As a woman, it feels it's a lot more female oriented in some ways. There are a lot of famous pastry chefs who are men who are more celebrity chefs, I'd say, than anything, like Duff Goldman or someone like that. Even like on the British Bake Off show, what's his name?
Oh.
Who's also been accused of sexual harassment.
Oh, I did not know that. Oh my
He's
God, what's
he,
his name?
Yeah, man. It's
I'm
something. It's
seeing.
Hollywood. Paul Hollywood.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul Hollywood. Well, okay, not harassment. He's dated a couple of the people who have been on
Contestants
the
or
show.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, so there are celebrity male pastry chefs, but most of the pastry world is dominated by females, right? It's mothers, it's generational and everything. So when I started school, especially, I was surprised because all of my pastry chefs were older white men who had had amazing careers, mind you, like work at some of the best restaurants or best hotels, who have been all around the world. But I couldn't I couldn't relate, and I couldn't like give them the same kind of praise that I would have wanted to, just because they were men. And I'd had one teacher the entire time of my 2-year program who was a female who left actually because they didn't offer her another full year of teaching. Another full year of teaching. She was amazing, and it's
Mm.
she studied in France for years, and just. But it's difficult. It's really difficult. I'm not gonna make it light at all. It is, and I think the point get light at all. It is, and I think the point of being an African American woman on top of that doesn't make it any easier. I'm already, stressed about having to work a lot harder just to prove myself to people that don't really care about me in the first place.
Mm.
But I guess the fact of saying that I'm there speaks volumes alone.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've worked in fine dining restaurants. So a little bit of background. I started school in January of 2018. And then at the end of 2018, I interned in Copenhagen at a Michelin star restaurant that focuses on new Nordic cuisine. And while I wasn't, the other was an intern. And then another woman was a CDP. She was a chef de partie. So she had a little bit of status. But myself and the other intern would always just gossip about whatever the guy said in conversation. And I remember one day we were all helping out. We were all helping out the chefs on the hot station. We were cutting pigeons, plucking and
That's cutting a pigeon. Choppy, choppy.
mind you, it's like 1 a.m. It's like the end of the night. We all want to go home. A thing you do.
Mm-hmm.
And they're over here talking. I'm not going to repeat what they said, but just what's the word? Disrespecting women on such a disgusting level. And I'm in Copenhagen most of the shop, and I don't care about culture at that point. I care about gender and just not being an asshole. Sorry to say that, but
No,
I
it's all
called him
good.
out, and I was like, what is happening right now? I was like, first of all, I'm tired. Second of all, whatever's called, I'm tired. Second of all, whatever this conversation is, it has to stop right now. I'm frustrated. This is awful. Do you hear what you're saying? First of all, do you know that we're right here? We can
Right.
hear what you're over here degrading women and just saying awful things. I was like, please don't ever say this in front of me again. I don't care if you have to fire. Please don't ever say this in front of me again. I don't care if you have to fire me or whatever. Just please do not ever say this. This is so disrespectful. And they're just like, okay, heard you. Yeah, whatever, whatever. Next day, quiet. Everyone avoids me at work. I would have gotten fired if I wasn't an intern, but they needed me. But at that moment, I was glad that I'd spoken up, and it was the only time in a job where I'd ever spoken up because I was an intern. So I felt like I could have done
Well,
that.
look, I'm only here for this amount of time and I'll peace out.
Yeah,
So might as well, you're
e-
going to catch these words. You're going to catch this.
exactly. I mean,
No, it's
because
important.
it was disgusting, just the
Mm-hmm.
workplace and moving
Yeah.
forward from there. So then I got in a job in a restaurant in San Francisco. Same kind of thing, my boss was a female chef, a female pastry chef who it took a long time to earn her trust, but she wasn't the top of the line, right? So who I really reported to, those chefs didn't care about me at all. Yelled at me to my face, called me into the office for some ridiculous things that were surely accidents on my behalf, but could have been handled in a much lighter sense. And had I not been a woman or a black woman, at that, it would not have been the same reprimand that someone else would have gotten for that same error.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very difficult. It's like you're in the same room as that person and you have the same ideas and you have the same concepts and no one listens to what you have to say about it.
Mm.
I know what's on the new menu for next week. And I'm like, hey, why don't we do a pumpkin cheesecake? And they're like, oh, whatever. And then the guy's like, hey, well, we should do a pumpkin cheesecake. And you're like, oh my God, that's genius. I would have never thought of that. And you're like, dude, I'm over here the
I
whole
just,
time.
I just said that. Stop repeating. Yeah. Unfortunately,
Literally.
that exists in I think most industries as well, unfortunately. It is changing, but not at a snail's pace, So.
I feel like it's very much at the pace of a lot of other industries that men are being called out for their disrespectful actions, but are they changing their actions? But are they changing their, how they work in the kitchen? Not necessarily. Are they understanding? Yes, they understand. They sympathize. They like try to relate or at least like be on the same level in some sort, but it's not going to change like, oh, this is a man's job, not going to change like, oh, this is a man's job. We have to like, because a lot of cooking and working in a restaurant is heavy lifting and like moving stuff and prepping. And that's not a man's job. I'm strong. I can do that too, but just all of that, those stereotypes that come with that. Yeah. So I'm over, these boxes, like 50-pound boxes up and down stairs. That's no problem, and killing myself. But it, once I learned that I didn't need to show off to a man just to get some respect and to earn my place in this industry, which was really like, when all of like COVID started to happen, I decided that it just wasn't, when I realized that it wasn't worth my effort and my time. And I think that was also one of the big reasons why I decided to just sort of venture off and do my own thing.
Yeah, so you're in the restaurants business and you're doing it and you're like, bump these people. So what made you go thing in the Bay Area? My guess is probably cost of living is a factor. Because life on life's terms. But yeah, so what kind of brought you into the small business space? How's that going? What are you liking about it? What are you like wanting to pull your hair out, kind of, and any tips in that space for folks?
Yeah, a couple of things that prompted my move. Uh, I graduated culinary school at the end of, or September of 2019, so a year and some change ago, and a year and some change ago. And I had no intention of getting the job that I'd gotten right out of school. I actually went to stage there just for fun. And I got a job, I got hired. And so I was like, oh, okay, well, I'll work here, but just so you know, like I'm planning on moving, sometime around the beginning of next year. Just so you know, like I'm planning on moving, sometime around the beginning of next year. Like, oh, okay, that's fine. I actually love that job and I regret not staying there because I would have just stayed through, when everything shut down and I would have gotten a little bit more out of it versus like leaving. So I would have gotten a little bit more out of it versus like leaving so abruptly. But I wanted to take some time to quote unquote rest. I hadn't really rested in a very long time from school and previous work before that. So I thought it was like a good time in my career to absorb everything that I learned in the past couple of years and be able to just like chill in New Orleans and mostly spend time with family. At the time, my grandma passed a couple of weeks ago, but she'd been very ill for some time. So I know I wanted to spend time with her and with COVID, but I decided to move home at the beginning of the year. And I'm really grateful that I did. Mostly because I got to at least experience a little bit of New Orleans before the shutdown. But so
Yeah.
on the timeline, March, to get a small part-time job being a bread baker at a bakery out here, which was really fun. Only that it was like a 4 a.m. shift, and that was pretty awful. But,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the life of bakers, especially bread bakers. So that happened. I lost my job, obviously, and COVID happened. Quarantine happened. I'm twiddling my thumbs, eager to do something. I start baking for family and friends, for like Valerie and Gerald, actually,
Mm.
and bringing family and friends just sweets that I wanted to make. And one day, I was talking to a friend about just like venturing out, and I was like, hey, I think I want to like try this thing out where I just make a box of treats and sell it. And this is when a whole bunch of pop-ups were starting to happen just because people were also just as antsy as I was. Because when you work in hospitality, like there's never a dull moment. Like you can't actually stop and like smell the roses. So I was like, I gotta keep going. I gotta just keep moving,
Mm-hmm.
so I had to do something. And that's kind of where Lagniappe started. It started as another business name that I will not name because I did not like the name at the time. But I started off selling an assorted box of pastries to close family and friends. That went over well. Took a little bit of a break, reinvented the menu, and with the help of my boyfriend, we decided to like website. I got an official like ordering system. I got an Instagram, and I just like pushed it. So now I do like small batch assorted pastry boxes and occasionally special order cakes. I don't advertise that part, but I do it. And really, if someone were to come in problems, I'd probably do that too. But really, with the intention of this business is a chance for me to do a little bit of R&D while I'm working. So I change the menu like almost every week to a certain degree, and it's really just whatever I want to do, whatever's in season, whatever I've prepped. If I've like, for example, I pickled peaches about a month and a half ago, and they're ready now, so that's been on the menu, stuff like that. It just varies with whatever my mood is, but I just try to offer a variety, something savory, whatever my mood is, but I just try to offer a variety, something savory that's still a pastry or a dessert, and then a few other components that make this box whole for a minute while the UPS was going, excuse me, while USPS was going down the dumps. Which is all where you going down the dumps. Which is all where you actually ordered cookies from. I decided to
Mm-hmm.
support USPS. Well, actually, okay, sorry. When you order cookies from me, that prompted me to want to support USPS. That's what I should say.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been shipping cookies to support USPS for a minute, which kind of seemed counterintuitive. I don't think it was really supporting. It was just for fun. And since then, I have just really kept consistently with these pastry boxes. Also, I have a friend of mine who is a culinary chef, a pop-up selling Senegalese Creole cuisine, and we work together. So he does the culinary, I do the pastry, and then my boyfriend manages both of us essentially. So we're this little like pyramid, and we're working through the end of the year. He's doing a lot of collaboration through the end of the year. He's doing a lot of collaborations with other restaurants, and I'll be tagging on every now and then doing the pastries for that, whether it's like an outdoor dinner with like plated desserts. So I get to do like a plated dessert meal, more of like a fine dining meal.
Nice.
Or I've been running a couple other desserts on his menu that have been really successful. So kind of jumping in different pots and trying to keep myself busy but not too busy. And I told myself from the beginning that the moment that it gets to be too stressful, I don't stop, but stressful, I want it to only be fun because that was the original intention. I had no intention of actually starting a small business, mind you. This was honestly just for fun. I needed something to do, and I'm really happy with the outcome of it. I've always wanted to be, my own boss and be an entrepreneur anyway. So this just kind of got that gear going. And it's been what, 4 to 5 months now since I've really technically started this business, and it's been amazing. I've gotten a lot of great feedback from people, a lot of support from the local community. Everyone here is so amazing and so giving and loving and accepting of whatever it is that I do, be it good or bad or whatever it is. And I'm excited to see what's going to happen with it. I do intend with me however I can. I don't think the word like lagniappe really carries over anywhere else in the world. So maybe that will switch, but I don't
You never
know.
know. It might work
You never
out.
know. Yeah, yeah. That's kind of what's happened.
Has it been quite what you
You know?
has it been quite what you expected? Are you excited to continue it, or how do you feel overall? I think it sounds like things are going well and a lot of growth potential there. What's probably the most challenging thing you've come in doing your own small business?
Yeah, to answer your first couple of questions, it's like a yes and no to both. It has been like both challenging and difficult, but it's also very rewarding. I didn't expect it to grow this much. Small batch, I can't promise like that many boxes. I only do them twice a week, and I do about 10 to 12 boxes at a time each day. So roughly 20 to like 25 boxes a week, um, which is not that much. I could be doing a lot more, but just wasn't expecting the response, just wasn't expecting the response to be so positive. I think that's me, like, just, not speaking highly about myself, but especially after all of the Black Lives Matter movements and a lot of people wanting to support small businesses, especially Black owned businesses, support small businesses, especially Black owned businesses. I got a lot of response from that and a lot of extra support. And as amazing as that's been, it's also been a little stressful for me. I don't respond to stress very well. So trying to keep up with what everybody wants and what everyone's looking for is difficult. But keep up with what everybody wants and what everyone's looking for is difficult. But I think the most demanding part is just wearing multiple hats. I take care of my social media. I do all of the things online to make sure the orders are up on time. And because I can't justify hiring someone, maybe like a friend come and help every now and then, but that hasn't happened yet. I take too much pride in my work, and it's too difficult to ask someone to help me when the menu is changing every week like that. But honestly, the most difficult is just having the transition between kitchen and office work so much that as much as I try to organize when I'm going to do those things, it never really works out. And you're running everything out of your house. It's just you're comfortable in your kitchen. You might want to watch a show or like come and do comfortable in your kitchen. You might want to watch a show or like come and do laundry. And it's taken me these few months, but I really like honed my schedule so that I'm in the kitchen between this time and this time. And if I'm not in the kitchen, I'm not in the kitchen. Like I
That's
do not
good.
at all anymore. Like I'm not in the kitchen. And when I'm in there, I'm focused. I get everything done that I need to get done. And then I also, do that same thing for office work. So I come and I sit on my computer for a few hours and I get everything done. And so as if I'm working, at a restaurant or somewhere else, to take this concept of working from home and really amplify it in that way has been super helpful to really stay on schedule. It's so difficult. I still have a lot of error in my ways. I accidentally forgot to set the orders for Thursday, so everyone thought they were picking up for Saturday. So, like things like that happen. They were picking up for Saturday. So, like things like that happen, and it's just inevitable. But people are super forgiving and understandable when things like that do happen.
Hmm.
And I try to respond to that in the best way that I can, and not upset any more people. But yeah, it's a crazy whirlwind, but honest with you, it's a lot. I spoke with I spoke with a masseuse yesterday who recently became an independent massage therapist, and we were just like talking about the same kind of things. She's just like, "How do you have time?" And I was like, "I don't have any time." I was like, "Time is just like a concept of the past." I mean, like, thank goodness right now, like, I'm not married with kids, because like if I had children, like that'd be a whole nother thing.
Hmm.
Like, man, I feel for moms who have to work and like are responsible for like having their kids stay focused in school. That's a tangent. I don't want to stay focused in school. That's a tangent I don't want to go down, but I'll say that. But it could be a lot worse, or it could be a lot more difficult right now. But I'm trying to manage it.
Awesome. Well, this has been really good and enlightening, and I think a lot of good information for themselves, for their variety of different um, different backgrounds and different options of business, and then also those specifically interested in the pastry culinary world. I think a lot of great advice and information. So thank you so much, Kaylee. I had to get one in there. Been really great. So I don't know if there's any like social media you want to plug, any upcoming events or panels or anything like that you got going on that you want to promote. This is your time.
Yeah. First, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm very excited, and I love talking about myself. I love talking about myself, so it's it's great to get a place to do that. And I really hope that, a lot of people can relate and understand, what we're all going through, and not just in this industry, but in any industry, working as a woman, working as a Black woman or a Black, all of these boundaries is just something we're learning how to do over time. My plug, you can find me on Instagram. That is the only social media that my business has right now. It's Lagniappe Baking, Lagniappe baking. Lagniappe is a French Creole term for like a little something extra, like a little gift. That's where that name derived from. My website is also the same. It's lagniappebaking.com. I currently am selling my pastry boxes every Thursday and Saturday, only in New Orleans. Boxes every Thursday and Saturday, only in New Orleans. So if you are in the New Orleans parish, or excuse me, Orleans parish or surrounding area, you can come find me. I also am working with Dakar Nola. That's Dakar Nola. Dakar Nola. That's Dakar Nola. Senegalese pop up. And Chef Serene is doing a few pop ups with restaurants through the end of the year that I will be tagging on to a few of those. So next week, we're working with Margie's Grill, and I'm making a whole bunch of moringa cheesecake. And in the coming months, I'll be doing a few other pop-ups with him where I'll be doing some other sit downs. So the best place is to find me on Instagram, and then you'll see all that information about the future events that are coming up. And I think that's all I have for now. Yeah.
Awesome. And website, and then the Dakar Nola as well.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
people can connect. Well, thanks again, Kaitlin, for joining me. This has been so fun, and thanks for joining.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited about all of this and to hear future episodes.
Thanks again to Kaitlin for sitting down and chatting with me. It was really great to talk to her, and I think we talked on a lot of great topics. Once again, thanks for listening. Please feel free to share this podcast with your friends. Thanks for listening. Please feel free to share this podcast with your friends, family, and even your enemies. You can find us on most of the major social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Victory Pod. If you're looking for how to subscribe or how to share your subscription with other people, go to our website at thevictorypodcast.com. There's a tab on there of where to listen, and you can find all the places that we're found, and it'll take you right to the page to subscribe. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll sign off this episode like I do every episode. Every problem has a solution. It's whether you're willing to do the work to find it. Let's do the work and be victorious.